Thank you. Meanwhile, Professor Sridhar has arrived. He's now the Central Information Commissioner, posted here in Delhi, and as I said before, he has a background in law, and before that in journalism, and with a particular focus on the right to information. So please, the floor is yours.
I think you have to transfer it here.
And friends here, after listening to two of my friends who presented two different angles of governance with reference to law and land rights, I think I'll be continuing the theme, but from the perspective of implementation of law, with governance as the theme. I need not explain the importance of land and the tribals. And the problem is the land of tribals is, as explained by Professor, my colleague V.N.V.K. Shastri, it continues to be under the occupation and control of non-tribals. And the support from political system and government machinery is obvious in spite of the law. And that is why the title, Law for Tribals and Land for Grabbers. And the tribals are reduced to just the subjects of academic studies and reports. We are doing it. Now, my friend must have already explained you the genesis of laws that are for protecting the tribal rights. Alluri Sitaramaraju from Andhra and Komaram Bhim from Telangana, they fought for tribal lands, tribal rights. And AP government conveniently ignores Bhim. That's an issue again, one of the reasons for the separate Telangana movement. And they neither respect Alluri Sitaramaraju in reality. So 1917 is the law where the transfers between tribals and non-tribals, transfer of land is prohibited. But there was one chance of transfer, that is with the permission of agent. Then in 1959, the first post-independence legislation, it prevents transfer of tribal lands totally. The purchase of tribal lands is prohibited. This was extended in 1969 to Telangana, another major issue. By that time, most of the non-tribals from Andhra occupied their lands, and a major problem, that is fallout of Major. Then Act 1 of 70, which is very popular because of its controversial implementation and non-implementation. I remember the past governor of Reserve Bank, Mr. Subbarao, was collector of Khammam district. At the time, I was a journalist. And he raked up all the issues of occupation of tribal lands and started implementing Act 1 of 1970 in 1980s, early 1980s. When Chief Minister came for a visit to that town, Khammam, all the non-tribal powerful lobbies surrounded the Chief Minister, and they were bidding a price for transfer of the collector because he was implementing Act 1 of 1970, and he was ultimately transferred. By the time I published my interview in newspapers, the collector was out. Then this law was Act 1 of 70 says transfer of land between non-tribals to non-tribal also is prohibited. Then it was challenged. Supreme Court came to the rescue of tribals and said, in the larger interests, it can be there, such a law can be there because it's a class of its own. If you have a reasonable classification, equality can be exempted from. Then in 1971, it was made a crime, the new penal legislation, which says if you occupy the tribal land, it is a crime punishable with 1 year jail and ₹2,000 penalty. Once it is recognized, defined as a crime, any ordinary police station can receive a complaint and anybody can give a complaint. If it is a cognizable offense, it will be a serious offense. But the great wonder is not even a single case is recorded. And one more provision under this legislation is any person can file a complaint. You know, this is the basis of public interest litigation. Generally, the law insists that aggrieved person should come, locus standi. What is your problem? But here, it's even though you are not aggrieved, you can represent the other persons. If you are a public servant, you can bring the issues to the court of law. Or any person, any active person can bring the issue. But this is the situation. A similar provision is not available in the enactments which regulate assigned land transfers. Then the problem is lack of governance. This is the major problem. Special Deputy Collector is supposed to be the lower court for the LTR violations, and Collector is the first appellate authority. That power has now gone to Project Officer ITDA. The revision powers are with the government, and who is this government? It could be either Minister, Cabinet Minister for Tribal Welfare, or Principal Secretary Tribal Welfare. And I remember one minister recently reversing the pro-tribal orders given by the two adjudicators below and benefiting the non-tribal. Then according to official figures, 48% of the land in scheduled areas of Andhra Pradesh is either owned or controlled by non-tribals. People dispute it even today. According to today's figures, official statistical record says it is more than 52%. But unofficially, they say 90% is under occupation. Till 1976, Lambadas were not tribals. Then their influx from Maharashtra after 1976, and non-tribals from Krishna, East Godavari, West Godavari, and Guntur districts, they increased the number of grabbing cases. Then, if you look at the statistics of implementation of this legislation between 1959 and 2004, approximately 76,000 cases were filed in 45 years, and 33,000 cases went against tribals. That means legal disposition of tribals and legal authorization of non-tribals in the tribal lands. And how does it happen? With a judgment. What is the basis of that judgment? One Sada Bainama transaction, that means transfer of land on a single white paper, plus a sheet which is called Pahani, the land record, of that year, the year in which he filed a petition, not year in which he took the land. Allegedly, he took the land. The transaction is supposed to be old transaction, so that you will not come into the net of land regulation. That means the paper should be at least old enough to reflect that it is a 45-year-old paper or 3-decade-old paper. But this man comes with a fresh white paper with a latest Pahani record, which shows the transferee as the holder of the land, possessor of the land. And the judge, the so-called special deputy collector who is supposed to adjudicate, doesn't even ask, is this an old paper? Where is the original Pahani record? Come on, show me the other person is the owner and you are not till so-and-so date, and you are the owner from so-and-so date. He doesn't even ask those primary details, and he will simply issue an order. Most probably the other party, that means the aggrieved party, the owner of the land, original owner of the land, or so-called complainant, is totally absent. So it's a one-sided judgment, baseless judgment, or based on a fraudulent paper, fraudulently not looked into. So entire thing is a fraud. And nobody comes to their rescue, not even Legal Services Authority. None is there to oppose them in appeal, take them in, oppose in the lower court or take them in appeal. Then my students, they studied 8,000 cases. They discovered these manipulations. They did not do anything. Look at those papers, that's enough. Open the files, you will discover it. You need not dig anything, or you need not be a detective. One latest copy of Pahani, yeah, that's what I told you, a deed of transfer of immovable property on a white paper. Then you have a Pahani. You know how the Pahanis can be made. Even a fresh newspaper is visibly considered as a 50-year-old document, and nobody questions it. Then they look at this. Res judicata has one principle in Civil Procedure Code, which says that if once it is decided, don't rake it up again, don't reopen the litigation. It is a public interest principle, but they use such a fraudulent adjudication will be treated as a final adjudication. There is one interesting presumption in law, that is, law of correctness of the judgment. Every judgment is presumed to be correct unless and until it is challenged and disproved in appellate forum. And because of this presumption, an unchallenged judgment remains a justified order, and that will be blocking further disputes in the name of res judicata. Res means already adjudicated. Res judicata means already adjudicated. You can't reopen. Balagopal, you know, that civil rights activist, very upright personality. He fought for the rights of the people against res judicata. Nothing happened and nothing happens. Then another tragedy is the cases which are decided in favor of tribals, they are not implemented. Not even a single acre gets transferred to tribal, in spite of the order. The machinery works with great enthusiasm to support a grabber, and the machinery is lethargic and very human, with technical due process questions to resist the ooster or grabber. Every minute the police has an authority to look into, and every minute you can take up the case. Res judicata doesn't work here. Res judicata is only for civil wrongs. Then why don't you use criminal law? Question the principle of res judicata that is blocking the implementation of rights of tribals, and why don't you implement the law is the question. It is used by public servants to support criminals in tribal land grab cases. That is the problem. Every fresh offense needs to be registered at every commission of crime. 170 provides for a presumption that the non-tribal occupant violated law. He has to rebut the presumption by proving that he was a bona fide purchaser before the prohibition. He will never do it. The burden of proof in 1959 was with tribal and tribal department. In 1970, it is shifted to accused. But in fact, the burden remains on the tribal, and the entire machinery is very, very favorable to non-tribal occupier. Then it's a case in Khammam where the two tribal families for 10 acres in Palvancha, they have to struggle for 22 years in spite of a favorable adjudication. Present officers refuse to enforce old order. Sir, it is 1984 order. How can I implement today? Then nobody knows why not. Nobody fights for it. And when paralegals struggle to secure justice from High Court, they have to keep a wonderful whistle in High Court, file that caveat petition, and see that no stay is granted. You know, the High Court can grant stay on anything. There was one interesting case where a woman struggled to get a divorce from her harassing husband. After 9 years, she got the divorce. She was about to marry another person, and the High Court granted a stay. You can imagine what will happen. They got it back at very high cost and huge delay. Of course, even though they got it back, it is at a very high cost. Then Bhadrachalam study in 1990 proved that not even 10% of LTR violations are recorded as crimes, are noticed by the court, are taken as complaints. The situation must be more serious now. Mankubai is another example my friend very, very frequently cites as a story which reflects the success, at the same time the tragedy of delay. 34 years. I don't know who will have such a sagacity and capacity, money to fight for a piece of land for 34 years. Then Samata judgment, which is regarded as one of the great judgments of Indian Supreme Court. But wonderful thing in that judgment is 90 pages of fantastic description of tribal rights goes out with 10 pages which are not noticed by anybody except by the government. The judgment leaves a fantastic loophole through which you can transfer entire tribal land, and that is this. Intergovernmental transfer is not treated as transfer at all. So you have prohibited the transfer. And I am saying it is not even a transfer. That's all. The whole judgment is useless. Then government is very happy. It can continue its activities as if there is no injustice or judgment that stops them from doing it. That is the situation. The Revenue Department transfers it to APIDC, and you know APIDC, it is totally engulfed in scandals. Today you have plenty of tons of files with being dragged into courts of law by that Lakshmi Narayana. He's a popular man in Andhra Pradesh because he brought to book all these persons. Now, do you know what is his situation? He's waiting for posting for the last 1 year. Then it is transferred to non-tribal corporations or companies. Government is the biggest offender. Tehsil laws and other revenue staff do not look into cases of agricultural land taken by the government prior to judgment. They say even otherwise they don't implement the judgment. Forget about the transfers made by the revenue department to APIDC and APIDs to corporations. Other lands which are under occupation by other departments, government tackling it, they don't just look into it. They say, from this date we use the judgment. Nobody said it. Nobody directed it. Then thousands of acres are under occupation of non-tribals through government. Not even a single acre of land was given back to tribals by the government after the judgment. Now they come out with GOs. Very, very clever GOs will come up. You will not find on the face of it that this GO is in contradiction of the judgment of Supreme Court. GO is freely available and they can produce it. Any number of copies can be produced. But judgment, 100-page judgment, very difficult to produce and very difficult to understand. Even judges sometimes find it difficult to understand the judgment unless they read the head notes. And the judgment supplied will be supplied without head notes. Now, who will interpret it? Who will understand it? So you implement GO, which is in contradiction of a judgment, which nobody knows. Even if I produce a copy before you, you can't understand it. So mystery of language, mystery of legalese, and everything. And officers do not give any value to judgment of Supreme Court. You know how that, what is that judgment? Salva Judum. It's totally finished within few minutes. So it doesn't serve any purpose except people like me will enjoy the language and the analysis. Fantastic presentation of facts of the case and very humane touch given by the judge. But nothing happens out of that. And it's a complex problem. Where law is there, they kill it in implementation. Where there is no law, there is no problem. Lack of awareness about rights among tribals is the main issue. Combination of inefficiency, lack of knowledge of tribal rights among officers. Tribals do not know, I understand. Even officers do not know. Is another major problem from government officer. But there is another fatal combination. Highly efficient officer and highly corrupt. And that combination is very fatal. Nobody can help the country from them. Corruption coupled with efficiency of officers and leaders is fatal for rights of tribal and of course for democracy also. Problem is bad governance. It is either no governance or bad governance, but never a good governance. Especially with reference to land and rights of tribals. Of late, some NGOs also developed vested interests. They gain some publicity initially, then they leave unorganized tribals and they join with their enemies. And finally, it is real estate. All the three estates, executive, legislature and judiciary, including fourth estate media, they are after real estate. For them, state means an estate. The Telangana is also stopped, by those who are very much interested in lands in Hyderabad. That's all. The only consideration is real estate, not the state. Rights are there on paper, but ground is occupied by wrongdoers. Law is for tribals, but land is for grabbers. State machinery supports land criminals. Then what is the solution? Awareness issue is the major issue. Land records, in whatever shape they are, don't say that we will regularize it, we will resurvey it, then we give. Then you will never give. So give them whatever they are, whatever shape they are in. Let the people have access to them. Those who know their rights and have access to land records can question the state. Create these two situations. Solution lies in creating awareness about law and rights besides opening up the land records.